Welcome to the Get Stoked podcast with Paul Stokes. Life lessons learned on the water that you can apply to everyday life. Now, here's Paul.
Hey, welcome to the Get Stoked podcast, where we talk about life lessons learned on the water. And today we're really excited to kick it off. I've kind of not had an episode for a while, so we're really excited to kick it off again, start putting some episodes out. And today we're featuring Brett Sands. How you doing, Sandsy?
Oh, good, Paul. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too, man. So Brett is, he's been around the sport for a long time. We'll get into when that all started, but I met Brett, I guess it was the 1996 Worlds, and we've gotten to be friends at these different competitions over the years, and honored to have his family visit when they toured the United States. Was that 2 years ago now?
2017.
Now? Wow. But
goes fast.
Just a great athlete, a great personality, a super fun guy to be around, and excited to have you here. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Paul. And it was a pleasure, mate, to come and visit you a couple of years ago on our road trip. That was great fun to see Heather again and meet your boys. It was awesome.
Yeah, we're going to get these families together again some way, somehow. Heather's talking about putting an Australian trip on the calendar. So
yeah, you better do it.
Yeah, Brett is coming to us from Australia today. So, the life lesson we kind of talked about was an experience you had back in the day, way back in 1985. And how old were you in 85? I guess that's kind of going to give away how old you are today.
Yeah, I just turned 50, to be honest. I'll tell you that up front.
Okay.
6 months ago, but I was 15 in 85, so I was still a junior boy.
Okay. Still competing in the junior boys division?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was going on in 85 at 15 years old?
The Worlds were, the year before I'd made the open team for Australia versus New Zealand in 1984 and was the youngest male ever to make the Aussie team, like on the open men's team. Obviously, there was no juniors then. And then obviously after that competition in New Zealand, the Worlds were coming up in Canberra, 1985, and I was all excited about, going to the Worlds, and I had my head wrapped around, I'm going to make this team and all that sort of stuff, and went through all the trials, did really well, but I was really good in all three events, Paul, and I didn't understand the team scoring so much, and I thought I was going to make the team because I came like fourth or fifth at the trials in open men's out of, I think they took 7 men. But the unfortunate thing, I wasn't really going to score for the team. And at the time, I didn't really know that. I just thought, they're going to take the best 7 guys. And I missed that team. And as a 15-year-old, it kind of like, your world just caves in. You think it's the end of the world because then barefooting was just everything, I went to school and just, before school, after school, it was just barefooting. And
during school, you're probably, if you were like me, you were writing down trick runs and
that's it.
You weren't listening to the teacher. You were doing trick runs on scratching it out.
Yeah. Had a digital stopwatch there. It was 20 seconds back then, I think. 20 seconds. I did my trick run in my head in class. You know what I mean? So I missed that team. That final team trial was only about 50 miles from where we live, and the trip home, I said to Mum and Dad, that's it, I'm not barefooting anymore. Like, I was really gutted, really, you know what I mean? It was like really hit me hard. And then after a week or two, I'm like, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to go to the Worlds and watch the Worlds. There was no independent skiers back then. And I went to the Worlds in Canberra in 85 and saw Seipel and Scarpa, all these guys. I had posters of these guys up on my wall. You know what I mean? Those guys had been world champions already, and that really motivated me, inspired me. And from that point on, I said, there's never going to be any doubt whether I make the Australian team or not. I'm going to work that hard, dedicate myself to, not that I hadn't beforehand, but I just said, I'm never going to miss again. I can't miss. It hurts too much. And I've been every team I've tried for since then, which is 10 teams. I've made each time I've tried for the team, I've made it. I haven't missed one since. I obviously had a long time off in between, but and I've used that sort of motivation through life as well, through business. You know, when things get a little bit hard, you know what I mean, or they're not going well when you're starting out. You know, just like pick yourself up off the canvas and just keep pushing on, and you know, you just the never give up, you know, attitude, I guess.
It can be very motivating if you use it as a tool to be motivating, right? Like you said, you had the choice to quit,
Yeah,
or you could double down.
yeah,
And you doubled down.
yeah. And I think that the quitting thing was just a spur of the moment thing, like an emotional, you know what I mean? I was upset. I was just a young kid, and barefooting was everything, and I just felt like that was it. The whole world was caving in, and you know, after a week or so of just, you know, spitting chips, we call it in Australia, just a little bit upset, I kind of thought it's going to be all right, and it was all right. It turned out great.
Yeah. And did you have an experience sitting on the shoreline watching that tournament like I did at a tournament before, where you watched these guys and you were like, I'm capable of doing what these guys are doing. Like, I can get to this level and I deserve to be there. You had that thought sitting on that shore watching it, didn't you?
Absolutely, without a doubt. It was very motivating. And I think it might have been Don Mixon Jr.'s first Worlds, that one in 85. And he was just a young fella too. He was probably only probably a year or two old. He might have been 16, maybe 17. I'm thinking, man, look at this. You know what I mean? I can, you know what I mean? Like, it's gonna be okay. I could see these guys. And then Germany came along, you know, 2 years later, and I was on the team skiing against Ron Scarpa, Mike Seipel, you know what I mean? Don, the Aussie guys, you know what I mean? It was awesome. It was just so good.
Yeah, man, those classic days back in the day. You want to say hi real quick, Heather? Heather wants to say hi. We'll let her pop in here.
Hi, Heather.
Hi, Samzy. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
Good. Good to see you. We've got to come and visit. I heard Australia's on the calendar. You're going to come down here.
Yes, we are.
You better. We're waiting for you.
Good. Okay, I'll let you finish.
Thank you. Good to see you.
So yeah, man, the heyday of barefoot, man, those days back then with all those talented skiers, it's something special, you know, those years of our sport, man. And I hope there's a future similar to it, but man, just something about the growth of the sport and the budding of it back then in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. It was just like this really cool thing, you know?
Yeah, it definitely was. I remember the sport was definitely still in its infancy then, you know what I mean? 78 was the first Worlds, and then I was 86, so it was 8 years later. And that might have been the first tournament ever that we didn't step off for jump.
Did not step off, yeah.
Yeah, at a world level, I think the guys, that was their first time, so I think we didn't have to pack our step-off skis. We only had to pack, I think we only had to pack two. It was definitely not jump. But yeah, it was just, the sport was still really evolving, you know what I mean? We were just skiing on these old German Bosch boats that were horrible, low center ski poles on poly-E lines. It was like,
and you watch the video footage and the ropes just doing this. So, you know, you mentioned the big break, and you've made every team you've ever been on. After the break, this last team you made was this 2020 team. Is that right?
2018. So I went to Canada.
Okay. You were in Canada. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So my last team before that was 2000 in Fergus Falls, the second one.
Okay.
And then I didn't ski in Austria. I just sort of, I basically retired. And then the Worlds came back to Australia in Mulwala, which is only like 100 miles down the road. So I decided to ski at Mulwala just as an independent. I didn't try and qualify for the team or anything. I didn't really want to knock any young kids out of the team, and just for me to be a little bit selfish and ski one more Worlds. For me, I thought, you know, the sport in Australia needed those young kids to stay motivated and stay on the team. So I skied in Mulwala in 04, just in slalom and jump. And then I didn't ski another Worlds, or try to ski another Worlds till 2018 in Canada, which is, they pretty much finished today 2 years ago. I think I just saw some memories come up in the last few days.
Those memories are good for that. And your motivation for that was having your kids watch you compete. Is that right?
Yeah. Before we went to the States, I got the letter in the mail getting inducted in the Australian Hall of Ski, the Water Ski Hall of Fame. That
Oh, cool.
that they were going to nominate me to go in, but it wasn't official. And then I come to the States and visited you guys and went to Florida and Texas and did some barefooting and this and that, and had a couple of conversations with Mel, my wife, and said, I'm not old enough to go into the Hall of Fame. And I guess my excuse to get out of it was I felt like I had the passion was reignited a little bit to barefoot again. And I thought, if I compete, I can't get into the Hall of Fame because you're not supposed to be able to compete in that in open for 2 years prior to that to get inducted in. So I thought, if I go and ski in a tournament, I'm pretty much can't go into the Hall of Fame, and then I'm not old anymore. That was my justification of getting old. I'm not getting old. I can't get into the Hall of Fame. So it was a bit of a joke, I guess, the Hall of Fame thing. But yeah, it was really good fun to get back involved and come to Canada. And yeah, it was so good. And
So good.
I'd never been on a winning Aussie team. So all those worlds I skied in, the 9, I was on the first ever losing Australian team. So the Aussies won the first 4. Was it 4? Yeah, first 4.
Okay.
And then I made the team in 86, and yeah, the next 9 worlds later, mate, we were second to the US in their prime. Without a doubt, the US had a lot of full-time skiers that skied all the time, like Ron, Mike, Lane, all those guys. Rick Powell, all they did was ski. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think 2020 might have been your shot. Who won in 2018?
Yeah, we won in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a win.
And it's going to be, it would have been a repeat in 2020, I have a feeling.
Our team's looking pretty good. And the difference this time between 2018 and 2020 is the 2 girls you've got that were juniors and were stepping into women. They certainly would have made a little bit of a difference for you guys, and never want to underestimate the Americans, mate. Fierce competitors. I used to love skiing against all the Americans for sure, even though there was a lot of pain involved. But it would have been.
You mentioned earlier that team scoring can be, interesting the way it plays out.
It is, yeah. And that motivated me a lot during my skiing career. You know what I mean? Most of my best competition and results through the worlds, I think not winning, being on the first losing team, I think that fueled the fire, yeah, big time. And we were so close. I think one worlds, I can't remember which one. There was 1 or 2 worlds there. One was like 17 overall points and one was 11. It was like, you're talking out of 9, I think it's 9,000 points maybe, or 10.
Yeah, those were intense, man, to be at. They really were. So much fun.
Yes.
So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is send me some videotapes, or at least some still shots and some videos for our intro and our outro of the podcast, and make sure you include that wake to wake flip for sure.
Yeah, I think that's floating around on Facebook. I don't think I've got a copy of it, but I know good old buddy. Yeah, you might. I think Don Mixon Jr. actually might have put it up a couple of years ago again. He was going through that Fergus Falls Worlds in '96.
Yes.
And
that was the year I think Kretschmann did the wake to wake 360 too, right?
Yeah. He's a beast. That John Kretschmann. He's awesome.
Well, can you think of a time in your business, to tie it in, like a lot of these lessons we learn about, in your case, getting knocked down, putting a lot of effort into something, getting disappointed with an outcome, because we know all you can control in life is what you put into it, right? You can't control an outcome. You can control the effort and the activities that you put into preparing for something, and the outcome's the outcome. So those lessons we learned on the water apply, like you said, to a lot of things in life. Can you think about something that might have happened in your business that's similar, where just so you know, Brett, you might tell us a little bit about your business, but it's a water sports business that you teach water skiing. I think you rent paddle boards and kayaks and stand-up stuff, all these types of stuff, right?
Yeah, we don't do so much of the stand-up stuff, but we basically teach water skiing, barefooting, wakeboarding, have since 1986.
So
And
you've been in business since 1986 as your full-time job?
Yep. So I was still at school. So that was fueled by a trip to the US in '85 after the Worlds. We met Seipel at the Worlds and Scarpa and those guys. And Mum and Dad decided if I wanted to go to the US for a month or so to train, get taught by these guys in our winter, your summer. I went over. I never even knew a ski school existed ever. And then I got there and I was there like a day in Thiensville in Wisconsin, where Mike used to run on the river there.
Yeah.
And I think I was there like in the boat 10 minutes and I just said to myself, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I just, you know what I mean? I'm like, this guy's doing what he loves. So came home from that trip. I was still at high school and I was turning 16 in the January of '86. And that's when you can get a boat license in Australia. So I think I had people booked in the day after I got my boat, was supposed to get my boat license. So I'd kind of risked it. But I got my license on the 15th of January in '86 and started the ski school, and I've never really looked back. We have a retail store as well. So we sell water ski equipment, wakeboards, water skis and barefoot suits and all that stuff right on the river. We're basically right on the water. We have my parents' property, which is pretty awesome.
Well, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but can you think of a time in your business or in your life outside of water skiing where, you didn't get the outcome you wanted, but you were able to suck it up and change your plans and, switch it up a little bit and turn it into success?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think whether there's been a point, Paul, where it's been something really went, sideways or bad or become
floods, right? Flooding or something like this.
Yeah, we have floods. We have floods. We've had times where it's definitely challenging. You know what I mean? We've had some big floods. We've had to move. We've got a portable shop, basically shipping containers that are all set up with our shop and everything in it on the water, and had to move it. And there's been some challenging times like that. But I think generally I've just always focused on, just doing the best that I can when things do get tough. Also, one of the things that I've learn't is also, look around your surroundings. And I used to do that when I skied. When I used to go to a competition early on, I'd look at how other guys prepare. The guys that skied well, how they prepared. The guys that didn't ski so well, how they prepared. And I always was trying to learn from other people. The people that were in the sport that were polished. And I think you do that in business as well. When things get a little bit hard, how do we adjust and how do we acclimate to changing conditions when things do get tough? And I definitely, one of the things I do is I always check my surrounds and go, what are these guys doing? Why are they successful? And that sort of stuff. And why aren't those guys successful? So you can sort of take the negative and positives out of what you do yourself, and also, people in your surrounds, and maybe not even in the same industry, just literally retail. Our whole town here is a tourism town. We don't really rely on tourism too much. We look at ourselves as we bring people to town. We bring tourism to town to ski with us. But a lot of people travel here. So when it floods the river, it affects the whole town. There's big paddle steamers on the river like the Mississippi, and some great tourist stuff that all is worked around the river. So when things get a little bit tough, we look around and try and work together. So that's another thing that I learn as well. But yeah, I don't think there's been any one point where I've gone, oh no, I'm really in trouble here. But I think having that experience when I was 15 has just made sure that I always stayed on top of it. You know what I mean? Like it really been nearly ahead of the game. Like when I missed that team, and then I said, there's going to be never any doubt that I make the next team. So I did everything I could to make sure that I was never going to be on the bubble. I'm going to do everything right. And the same with business. You know what I mean? Let's just get all our ducks in a row.
Do the work, you know. One of the things that I just thought of, and we'll wrap up here in a second, but what I noticed in myself is if I showed up to a competition and I was prepared, like really prepared, and we could talk about how that preparation is, like best practices, but when I showed up and I knew in my heart that I'd done the work and I was prepared, it was really easy to turn the nervous energy positive. You know, all your visualizations have been positive, but if you know in your heart that you really didn't put all the effort in and you maybe aren't prepared, that nervous energy turns into negative. Yeah.
Yeah. But mate, you start thinking about, I should have done this, I should have done that. And I think that's how I learnt that first experience way back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I totally agree on the mentorship and surrounding yourself with good people and asking questions to the people that you look up to, whether they're in your own business or not, or even in other sports or not. Getting input on how other people are doing best practices. Yeah. In all areas of life is a good thing to do. My shirt Max Out is this guy Ed Milet that I follow on his podcast, and he's just this amazing guy, and he's fun to listen to and can learn so much, you know, if you want to learn it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all out there. It's just, you got to spend the time to resource it and
put it to work, put it to use.
You got without a doubt. And we've been lucky. I've been lucky that I've been able to do the sport that I, work. What do they say? If you do something you love, you don't have to work a day in your life, basically. And it feels like that. It's been, like we said, there's been some challenging times, but in the end, I just sit back and so grateful for, you know what I mean? The Barefoot Club writing me a letter back in 1981 after I got my barefoot badge, you know, when I become a member of the club, and said, come to this training school and ski with John Stecklenburg, the world champion. And do you know what I mean? Like, just lucky that happened. And I went to this little ski school up on a river not far from here. And all of a sudden, you know, sort of 35 years later, I'm still connected to the sport and learnt some good lessons, met some great people, and been able to travel all over the world.
Well, I certainly love the sport of water skiing, and of course for us, barefoot water skiing specifically, but it's such a special sport to build friendships and, have a good time with your family and friends. There's really, in my mind, not another sport like it that's so cool and so fun. So, well, man, kicking the podcast back off, I couldn't have asked for better guests. I love you from over here in the United States, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah.
And appreciate you taking the time, and say hi to your family for me.
Yeah, same, Paul. Send love to all your guys there and to all the Barefoot family there. And hopefully once this crazy time in the world's over, we can all reunite and be connected in person. But this is a great way to connect. So,
well, if Harrison jumps into competition and gets serious about it, maybe I'll see you on the dock.
You might. You'll be able to teach that young dog a few old dog tricks, and
you got it.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Be good to see you go again too, mate.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Get out there and get stoked.
Thanks for listening to the Get Stoked podcast with Paul Stokes. We look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, stay stoked.